Marvel Rivals is an online team shooter where you team up with allies and enemies within the world of the Marvel Universe. So much so that honestly you could do an entire video of characters you'd love to see be playable in Marvel Rivals. And yeah, surprising no one, this is what this video is all about. But here's the kicker. Instead of just doing the simple, I want this character and what class they would be in the game, I thought it'd be more fun to do a full-fledged season concept, featuring 2 characters, 1 whole map, at a minimum of at least 2 different team-ups, as long as they feature the brand new character. Though note, we are going to be choosing characters that are officially confirmed to be coming out later out this year, and we won't be choosing any characters within data mines. So let's talk about my personal Marvel Rivals seasonal character concepts, here on Star Jettison. So before we begin, I should lay down some more ground rules. Obviously, I mentioned that we'll be doing 1 whole season, but we have to explain what we want with this season. And you could also follow along too if you want to do your own personal concepts for your own personal videos or in the comments below. It's pretty easy. All you have to do is just make your own personal season, which will feature 2 characters, 1 to 2 maps, and a minimum of 2 synergies. Either a synergy that exists or was retired in the game, making its comeback in a unique way, as well as a brand new synergy featuring either one or both characters. You could even make up your own different types of synergies if you can find good enough ideas. And for this entire video, I'll be giving you my 5 personal seasonal concepts, and if this video does well enough, I'll do a part 2. And the last thing we have to do is figure out a way to connect the story within Marvel Rivals. Truth be told, I am not really that knowledgeable of Marvel Comics. I did my best to actually research a lot of these characters and figure out great ways to interconnect them in some way or form. But don't forget, Marvel Rivals does technically have its own unique canon, so take these all with a grain of salt as these are still possible concepts. So let's start off our first fire pass by talking about the map of the place. And this will actually have 2 different types considering it's a brand new area. And I decided to go with Avengers Academy. Though we already have Avengers Tower in Manhattan, thanks to the Dracula season, Avengers Academy is the school within an Avengers, featuring a lot of the younger new generation of heroes. And the first character we'll be introducing to the roster is sort of confirmed already, mostly because one of the characters was recently shown in the new season, but the other one hasn't. I'm of course referring to Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur. Being a 2-in-1 character similar to Cloak and Dagger, but having a playstyle somewhat mixed like Cloak and Dagger and the Incredible Hulk. As I think the best way I could describe her playstyle would be you can technically control Devil Dinosaur, but you can also control Moon Girl, and she will work with Devil Dinosaur as a puppet-based character, allowing her to make Dee do certain commands. While the enemies are distracted with the giant dinosaur in the battlefield, a lot of people would also forget that Moon Girl is also a playable character too. And her specialty would be trapping enemies, giving allies a little extra defense, and even managing to push away her enemies thanks to her boxing glove knockback. And the reason I chose her was because, well, I really like the animated series. It really needed more than 2 seasons. Plus, she was actually a member of the Avengers Academy students, along with the other character who would be rivaling against her, which I decided to go with another favorite of mine from when I was a kid, the demonic child of Mephisto, Blackheart, who would also be under the Vanguard class. And believe it or not, Blackheart is actually a member of the Avengers Academy as well. Well, formerly, but it still counts. Blackheart would definitely be one of the tankier characters with a decent amount of melee and a few range attacks using Hellfire and even summoning demons in order to aid his allies and give them a little extra defensive support. As for their team-up abilities, I actually thought of 3 different team-ups, since there are technically 3 characters. Starting with Blackheart, he will be included in the Primal Flare team-up ability along with Phoenix, getting a little bit more energy from the Phoenix Force to better improve his Hellfire abilities. As for the second character, it would be Devil Dinosaur, being part of the Bestial Hunt team-up with Daredevil. I think it would be a really good team-up ability where Devil Dinosaur could actually sniff the arena and even find enemies within the vicinity. And let's be for real, Daredevil and Devil Dinosaur having a team up, that's kind of a genius idea. That also includes this brand new team up that's dedicated to Moon Girl, which I like to call the Moon Crew, as Moon Girl would be the anchor of the group, and surprising no one, would actually have a team up with Moon Knight and Luna Snow. Since both characters are interconnected with the moon, Moon Girl will build extra gadgets for Moon Knight and Luna Snow, with Moon Knight getting a smaller version of his Ankh that has smaller range, but gives you more strategy options, while Luna would get a boombox that would actually give ranged healing to any nearby allies. But now let's talk about what would go on in this season to cause Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur to go against Blackheart. Well, after the splitting of the multiple universes, Moon Girl stayed at the Academy trying to find where Devil Dinosaur went, but as she reunites with her friend, thanks to certain allies thanks to Season 6, more dimensional rifts start breaking with a horde of demons attacking the school, led by Blackheart. But that's not entirely true. It's later realized that Blackheart was under mind control thanks to another party member, which we'll talk about soon, and by navigating the academy collecting material to close the rifts, the season ends with sealing of the massive rift. It did manage to suck in a few allies and enemies into another dimension, which is going to be what we're talking about for the next season, which is the Field Trip of Chaos. As the name implies, this season will be dedicating itself into the Chaos dimension, meaning Scarlet Witch would be the heart of the season, but wouldn't be the star of the new characters that join the roster. As I did mention, there was another person in control of last season, and considering someone who also specializes in chaos magic, I decided to go with Agatha Harkness. Though she was the enemy of last season, she'll actually be teaming up with our allies, mostly because she wants to get out of the Chaos Dimension herself, as I think it would make sense that this version of Agatha would be part of the Collapsing Universe, and what she was trying to do was trying to suck up the life energy of other universes in order to save her own. A more empathetic villain, but she does team up with the others in order to help save the universe. Because if she thinks if anyone can save her world, it's definitely the Scarlet Witch. But in order to escape the Chaos Dimension, they also have to get through another creature that was sent in this dimension. And ironically enough, would be another character you'd be familiar with if you played Marvel vs. Capcom. He used to go by the name of Shumagorath, but now he is Gargantos, an ancient deity also referred to as the Old One. Both characters would be under the Strategist class, as this would be a double Strategist season. Agatha would kind of play similarly to Scarlet Witch in a way, but I guess you could think of her more as Moira from Overwatch, as she would actually use her dark energy to actually take the life energy from her enemies and give it back to herself. But she can also take the energy that she stored up and revert it into actual HP as well as shield damage for her allies. Shumagorath I decided to go as a strategist as well for a good reason, and that would be how his playstyle would work. Sure, he is an ancient deity and he would be shrunk down to size. What specializes him is that the fact that he would actually throw little parasites around the area that would actually heal his allies. He can even throw them at enemies and allies in order to drain their life energy as well as revert it back into his own HP pool along with his allies. But also one of the big reasons why I think Gigantos would be a good support, it's also because of his special unique ability that he can only use, which takes a lengthy amount of recovery on par with Adam's Revival and Doctor Strange's Portal. That being, if people were to slay Gigantos, they would become Gigantos. And I think that would be a really cool ability. But, in order for it to succeed, the character who slayed Gigantos would be temporarily stunned for a time being, with Gigantos trying to take over, and only capable of taking out half their HP. If the move is successful, the enemy will be destroyed and transform into Gigantos, making it a revive ability while getting rid of an opponent. But of course, this is only very useful if you're going against either duelists or strategists. Not to mention, this ability would also might summon you into the opponent's side. But it also makes sense that Gigantos would also be a very speedy character, so he'd have great escape plans. As for their team-ups, since I decided to make Agatha more like Scarlet Witch, it makes sense that she'd also join in the Arcane Order team-up. Though this would mean that Magic would be leaving this team-up ability, but she'll actually be part of a new one, teaming up with Gargantos. I know I refer to him as Shumagorath or Gargantos, but that's mostly because of legal reasons. I don't know the entire details. Anyway, Magic will actually get a team-up, which I call the Old One's Allegiance. With the power of the Old One, Magic is capable of healing herself, and her team will actually alter some of her powers, considering she gets her powers from Limbo. But one of the major differences would be the minion that she summons would have some traits of Gigantos now part of it, and would have a healing field, giving Magic also defensive reserves in case things went south. Though Gigantos was not happy being sent to the Chaos Dimension, he realizes that all worlds, including his own, are in danger and decides to help the heroes try to take down the Dooms, and even helps them open a gate out of the Chaos Dimension. With everyone reunited at the Academy, everything's peaceful. Peace is only temporary. This will be taking our third season concept as we go back into the Spider-Verse. But things are a little different, as the universe is covered in red web, as the web of life has been corrupted thanks to a psychotic red symbiote. And most of the spider people have been turned into red symbiote henchmen that follow only one evil creature, that is, how you say, pure carnage. Yep, this season is basically something I like to call the Red Spider-Verse, and would feature Carnage as our newest duelist character. Definitely playing differently from Spider-Man, as he's definitely more hack and slash ready, but he still has tons of maneuverability similar to Spider-Man and Venom, and he'll do everything in his power to make sure his world is his own, and he's ready to feast on all the spiders in the multiverse. But there is one spider that seems to be immune to the power of the symbiote, and of all spider people, this one might be surprising to a lot of people. I went with Silk For those who don't know who Silk is, she's a spider person that was experimented on to create the carbon copy of Spider-Man. She does have the same abilities in some way, but what makes her different is also something that's really unique to her, and that's her spider pheromones, and the ability to actually shoot natural webs. And it occurred to me that could actually be very useful as a healing mechanism if she was a strategist, which is what I decided to put her as. A very weird choice, I know, but the spider pheromones in her body would actually act as a deus ex machina as to why she was immune to being consumed by the Carnage symbiote. So by escaping to another reality, as she asks help from the other Marvel characters in order for her to stop Carnage. This does mean that this is another Spider-Verse map that's an escort mission, but the device would have also had special sound wave frequencies and shoot out the pheromone that Silk has to nullify Carnage's reign over the Web of Life. But now I think it's about time I actually talk about their team-ups. Since this is Carnage season, it makes sense that we talk about Carnage, creating his new ability known as Carnivorous Thorns, which he'll actually give to Penny and Venom, who in this season I think would make sense would be corrupted thanks to the red symbiote power. And yes, they would get cool red symbiote skins. Venom would definitely get thorns in his venom vines, so when he traps his enemies, they also deal light damage to them. Penny's, however, I think would make sense that she would have one special web that can connect to her other ones that can slow down her opponents, trapping them more in her mind attacks. As for Silk, Parker power-up is the best I can think of right now, and she would have the ability to create a big old web healing field. As Silk is the first healer in the Spider-Verse, it would make sense that she would have an ability that connects with other spider characters, and she would be capable of shooting webs that connects to her allies in order to heal them, as well as trap her opponents. I'm also going to give her a second team ability, but honestly, I have no idea what I'm going to do with this because it's about 2 other characters coming to Season 7 that aren't yet confirmed, but have been basically leaked already. And from what I researched, Silk actually has a connection with both characters within Season 7, with White Fox being part of Atlas along with Silk, and Black Cat actually taking care of Silk when she had nowhere to go, at least from when I was researching the character. Though this is my only Spider-Man based season, who's to say I could do more in the future? I've got tons of Spider-Man villains I'd love to see in there. Though the big question is, how would Carnage react to post-events of the Red Spider-Verse? Well, simple. Thanks to the pheromones spreading around on the Spider-Verse, it kind of cooled Carnage down. He's got a less killer intent, but the rest of the Marvel Universe is going to make sure he stays out of trouble, for the most part. Speaking of places to keep an eye on, let's take an eye on the next season's map, which would be the X-Mansion from the X-Men, which would be a tech point map where you would actually fight it out in iconic areas in the X Manor, whether it be inside Xavier's school, outside in the courtyard, or even in the Danger Room. With this theme being Spy in the Shadows, this season will actually feature another dual class system, just like with the first 2 I've done, this time being of course duelists. And of all the X-Men characters I kind of think makes sense to have as double duelists, I went with Nightcrawler and Mystique as rivals. First off, Nightcrawler, one of my favorite characters in the X-Men series. Doesn't matter which version, they're all good, unless there's a controversial comic I don't know of. And Mystique as a rival kind of makes sense in some aspects of realities. In the original X-Men animated series, Mystique is Nightcrawler's mother, so it makes sense that these two would be dueling out at Xavier's school, with Nightcrawler being a quick hack and slasher, mastering fencing, and wielding 3 swords, even capable of throwing swords in certain areas and teleporting straight to them. Mystique, however, would be a stealth-based character, considering Mystique's ability to shapeshift. Though I am unsure she's capable of even using the same abilities as other characters, she would actually temporarily transform as her allies in order to take them out. She would have the ability to trick her enemies into thinking they're an ally. And if worse comes to worse, she could always use a smoke bomb to escape. Mystique is armed with tons of different weapons and arsenals and trained in combat. As for the team-up abilities, with Nightcrawler joining Divine Armory with Angela, because if you understand Nightcrawler's character, that kind of makes a lot of sense in a way, as well as Nightcrawler becoming part of a new team-up ability known as Blessings from the Night, where he gives this ability to Mystique as well as Cloak and Dagger, more specifically Cloak, with Mystique throwing a ball of energy that will teleport her to where she threw it, and Cloak will actually have a healing field when he disappears. As for Mystique, she'll also be part of the Rocket Network, as she will borrow some of Rocket's gadgets in order to prepare more traps against her enemies. As for why these two are fighting this season, well, there's been weird things happening at the X Manor and Xavier's school, with people either missing or finding people in weird places. So Nightcrawler investigates the school, only to find out that Mystique is trying to find something in the academy. Nightcrawler helps her, and what they find out, it's a message from someone, telling their location, and of course saying the lines, "To me, my X-Men." Yes, this is hinting at Charles Xavier, even though it's been leaked that he is in the game. But this is just my little theory that if he were to show up, he'd either be in the Shi'ar Empire or in another dimension, with his rival being Juggernaut. If you know, you know. The last season we'll be talking about is one that's been going on the top of my head, and honestly, I kind of like the concept. With the season being Attack Nowhere. And I don't mean nowhere, I mean nowhere. The base of the Guardians of the Galaxy. Although some of you might be hoping it'd be Drax or Gamora, unfortunately no, I actually went with Cosmo the Space Dog. And he would be a strategist. Cosmo has psychic-based abilities, and the ability to use telekinesis, not to mention, of course, being a dog, would be one of the speedier healers, with special psychokinetic barks, the ability to give allies and himself a psychokinetic shield for healing purposes, also just because I think it'd be cute. He'd be digging around the stage, throwing out HP containers, color-coded based off the team, so enemies can't pick them up. And for an ultimate ability, I think it makes sense that he would basically do a large howl that will temporarily stun his opponents, as well as boost up ally attack, as well as healing them in the process. As for his rival, well, through my research of Cosmo, there was actually a time when Cosmo was actually leader of a side team of the Guardians of the Galaxy known as the Annihilators of the Galaxy. As this team is dedicated to Annihilators of the Galaxy and features a Marvel fan favorite, and personally my favorite because I just think he's kind of cool after learning more about him, Beta Ray Bill, the only other person worthy of the weapon Mjolnir, even though he wields a different weapon known as Stormbreaker. And of course, he'd be categorized under the Vanguard class. Though Beta Ray could be considered like a second Thor, I think it makes more sense that if he had a different playstyle using Stormbreaker, having him throw it like a boomerang, shooting down big clouds of thunder. But the big reason I'd also include them would be because of their team up. Obviously, Bill being the anchor, and Thor being part of it, which is called Weapon Swap. For a small amount of time, and of course at the request of the allies, Bill and Thor will actually switch weapons for a limited amount of time, and it can even drastically change their playstyle. So Bill's attacks will actually give him shield damage, while Thor's will give him more attack power. They'll basically still play the same, it's just that their damage ratio and defense power will change for a bit. It also even affects their ultimates. As for Cosmo, he'll join the Pet X Pals, but I think it should be reworked so you can actually have two pals on Groot. So say you have Jeff or Rocket on one side and Cosmo on the other. But for it to be a little more balanced, it would cost Groot more speed, meaning he'd move slower. As for the map Nowhere, it could be a two-parter, which will be an escort as well as a rumble map, with the rumble map having you collect specific materials in order to take down Beta Ray Bill, and the escort basically getting one item out of Nowhere before Bill reaches the MacGuffin. And what is this MacGuffin, you're probably wondering? It's another one of those chrono materials that Doom's been looking for. Cosmo happened to find one when he returned to Nowhere, and with most of the Guardians of the Galaxy gone, Cosmo took in charge. However, surprising nobody, Loki had a backup plan if his takeover of Asgard didn't go well. Loki, disguised as Odin, requested that Beta Ray Bill, who was guarding Asgard for the time, to travel the stars in order to find more chronovium, and he happens to luck out in Nowhere. Finding it dangerous, Cosmo and the reunited Guardians decide to put it in a ship and launch it out into a black hole. Bill hits the chronovium, letting out a massive shockwave of energy. A mysterious entity floating on a surfboard warns them of a threat coming straight for both Nowhere and Asgard, a threat on a galactic level. You can probably take a guess who that could be, but I'm going to save that for a potential part 2. As this is basically my personal choices for Marvel rival characters as well as playstyles. I know it's not really as in-depth as my moveset concepts, but I'm not really someone who knows the Marvel Rivals meta, mechanics, or, well, know much about game design and competitive play. But this is just generally my idea of like how these characters would play in certain situations, or what would be the best class for them based on their personality and fighting style, from what I've researched. But this is where the comments come in, as if you had characters you'd want to see in Marvel Rivals, especially in team-based seasons, let me know in the comments below. And if you guys want to see a part 2, make sure to like and subscribe. Ring the bell for notifications. And if you want to see more Rivals, I do stream it on Twitch from time to time, more specifically when the new season stuff kicks in. I'll still be igniting the battle from time to time, but of course until then, this is AngelStar, signing out from Star Jettison.